Listen to me. Someone is trying to kill me.
Who? I don't understand. Lars, what's happening?
Someone is following me. Please, lock all of my credit cards. That was one of the last calls between Lars Mittank and his mother. No one is screaming. No one is chasing him. But the man in this video is running as if his life is in immediate danger. This footage was recorded on July 8th, 2014, inside Varna Airport, Bulgaria. The man you're seeing is Lars Mittank. He was supposed to board a flight back to Germany, but instead, he leaves everything behind. His suitcase, his passport, his phone, and then he suddenly runs. Witnesses later reported that Lars was shouting, "I don't want to die here. I have to get out of here." Security cameras follow every step as Lars exits the terminal, climbs over a fence, and disappears into the area outside the airport. This video spread rapidly across social media in 2014. If you're following this case, stay with us just a little longer, because what we're about to examine is not speculation. It's a series of small details that may have been overlooked within these very images. So, why would a man about to fly home run in this level of fear? According to investigators, before he disappeared, Lars had been on vacation with friends. They later said that during those days, Lars barely ate, occasionally only soup or salad. And at one point, a brief argument occurred between Lars and a group of German tourists, fans of Bayern Munich, a rival football club. Or consider the doctor who treated Lars, a man who may have seen someone connected to his disappearance. In this documentary, we will not speculate. We will not invent suspects. We will not offer explanations without evidence. Everything you are about to hear is based on verified timelines, security camera footage, medical records, and direct testimony from those involved. And when the facts end, we stop. If you're interested in real cases, unsolved mysteries, and careful analysis grounded in context and evidence, consider subscribing. Hours before the airport footage, Lars called his mother, Sandra. This was not a normal phone call. According to her, Lars sounded panicked.
I thought, my God, my son is in danger. I could hear his heart pounding through the phone. He said someone was trying to rob him or kill him.
Sandra Mittank recalled the conversation in a German television interview. And as you'll notice, when watching the footage, the most important detail is not where Lars goes, but how he moves. Lars moves back and forth, changing direction abruptly and stopping repeatedly, as if listening or watching something the camera cannot capture. In multiple frames, Lars looks out the window, not once, but again and again. That behavior suggests he isn't simply curious, but actively checking whether he's being watched. This is unusual behavior for a tourist, but it aligns with the psychology of someone trying to find temporary shelter while feeling unsafe. These actions repeat over and over across several hours. What does that tell us? It suggests that Lars was experiencing sustained fear, not a brief moment of panic. At the same time, in the footage, we never see anyone or anything directly approaching or threatening Lars. No figure enters the frame. No immediate danger is visible. That raises questions and countless theories. Was Lars's fear triggered by a real threat that the cameras failed to record? Or was it driven by something that existed only within his perception at that moment? In today's video, we're going to examine the key details surrounding Lars Mittank before he disappeared completely. Were the signs before his disappearance warnings? What did his mother and the doctor reveal about Lars? Is there something that still hasn't been uncovered? And did Lars Mittank appear in the years that followed? This story is not told to spread fear. It's told so it won't be forgotten. What you're about to hear is based on documented sources, shared with the goal of accuracy and respect for those involved. For those who may not be familiar, Lars Mittank was born in Berlin on February 9, 1986. He was an only child. He spent his childhood and teenage years in the town of Itzehoe in northern Germany. Starting in August 2007, Lars worked as a precision mechanic at the Wilhelmshaven power plant. He had a steady job, a solid group of friends, and a girlfriend. People who knew him described Lars as energetic, athletic, and passionate about sports, especially football. He was a devoted fan of Werder Bremen. Beyond that, Lars was down-to-earth, practical, and deeply connected to nature. He had experience with hunting, scuba diving, and outdoor exploration. As a child, he often went fishing with his father. He also enjoyed survival shows and was a fan of Bear Grylls, a very popular figure online at the time. Lars had a very close relationship with his parents. In 2012, his father suffered a stroke. From that point on, almost every weekend, Lars would travel from Wilhelmshaven, where he lived and worked, to Marne, to help his mother around the house. Those closest to him described Lars as completely ordinary, with no history of mental illness or unstable behavior. In the time just before he vanished, Lars went on vacation with friends to the Golden Sands Resort. On June 30th, 2014, he and 5 friends traveled to Golden Sands near the city of Varna, Bulgaria. 2 of them, Paul S. and Tim S., were longtime friends and former classmates of Lars. The other 3 were acquaintances. Golden Sands, located along the Black Sea coast, is a popular summer destination for young Europeans. Known for beach parties, nightclubs, and a high-energy atmosphere often compared to Ibiza, but at a much lower cost. They booked a 1-week stay at the Viva Hotel, a 4-star luxury hotel in the area. During the first days of the trip, everything seemed normal. They spent their time relaxing on the beach, swimming in the pool, and going out to nightclubs. According to his friends, Lars appeared relaxed and seemed to be enjoying the vacation. However, one small detail stood out. Throughout those days, Lars ate very little, occasionally only soup or salad. No one in the group considered this alarming, given the intense heat and the fact that loss of appetite didn't seem unusual. At the time, no one believed this was a warning sign of what was about to happen. On the night of July 5th, Lars and his friends went to a bar called Ministry of Cocktails to watch the World Cup quarterfinal between the Netherlands and Costa Rica. The bar was decorated with flags and national colors, creating a lively World Cup atmosphere. After a few beers, Lars began joking around, switching national flags between tables. This annoyed another group of German tourists. They noticed the Werder Bremen jersey Lars was wearing a club he deeply supported. That group were fans of Bayern Munich, Werder Bremen's rival. A brief argument broke out, but Lars's friends quickly stepped in and calmed the situation before it escalated into a fight. After that, the evening continued normally. Lars and his group were the last customers to leave the bar that night. Around 4 in the morning, 2 of Lars's friends stopped at a McDonald's along the beach to grab some food, Lars said. He wasn't hungry and didn't like that kind of food. He waited nearby, then told his friends he would walk back to the hotel on his own and meet them later. But when his friends returned, Lars wasn't there. He came back early that morning without speaking to anyone and went straight to his room. A few hours later, Lars told his friends a story that left them confused. He said that on his way back to the hotel, he had been attacked by 2 men, either Russian or Bulgarian. According to Lars, they had been hired by Bayern Munich fans, the same people that he had argued with the night before. To explain why he believed this, Lars said that during the argument, a German man told him that in Bulgaria, it was easy to hire someone to hurt another person for very little money. His friends did not believe the story. They felt something was off about his behavior. Lars complained of pain in his left ear. He believed it was the result of the attack. He also called his girlfriend in Germany to explain what had happened. She advised him to see a doctor, but Lars thought the pain would go away on its own. He chose not to follow that advice. On July 6th, Lars spent most of the day quietly buying souvenirs and postcards. By July 7th, the day the group was scheduled to fly home, the pain in Lars's left ear had worsened. He began to lose hearing. Lars and one friend visited a local doctor. The doctor found an injury near his jaw and diagnosed a perforated eardrum. He advised Lars not to fly, warning that cabin pressure could worsen the condition. He also referred Lars to a specialist. Lars became anxious about his job at the power plant. He knew that a permanent injury could affect his responsibilities and mandatory inspections. Lars began considering not flying that day and staying behind for treatment. His friends offered to stay with him, but Lars refused and reassured them that he would manage through his health insurance. At around 8 p.m., Lars's friends boarded a flight back to Germany. Lars was left alone in Bulgaria. Because it was peak tourist season, most hotels in Golden Sands were fully booked. Lars moved to another hotel, the only one with a vacant room, the Color Hotel, a budget hotel located not far from the airport. At 10:10 p.m., the taxi stopped in front of the Color Hotel. Lars stepped out, carrying his luggage and the antibiotics. He thanked the driver and left a generous tip. The hotel was located on a narrow side street in one of the city's more run-down and widely considered unsafe areas. Lars felt thirsty and considered crossing the street to a small shop across from the hotel. But when he noticed several men who appeared suspicious standing outside, he decided not to go. At the front desk, Lars checked in and paid with his credit card. Later, the receptionist recalled that from the moment he arrived, Lars appeared restless with a flushed face. She said she initially thought he might be intoxicated. Lars asked about bus routes back to Germany. The receptionist then sold him a bottle of water from the hotel bar so he could take his medication. Around 11 p.m., Lars called his mother, Sandra. His voice was anxious and unsettled. Lars described everything that had happened, from the argument with Bayern Munich fans at the bar to the attack that left him with a perforated left eardrum. He said he could not board a plane and that his friends had returned to Germany, leaving him alone in Bulgaria. Growing increasingly distressed, Lars added that the hospital doctor had mocked him, pretended not to speak English, and refused to communicate. He said he was required to pay a bill of 120 leva, despite never being admitted. Before ending the call, Lars asked his mother to contact his international health insurance so he could be transported home by a medical transport vehicle. During that call, Lars told his mother that something felt strange about the hotel. He said he did not feel safe. Lars also believed the receptionist had done something unusual with his credit card. He suspected the card had been copied for malicious purposes. Lars asked his mother to lock the credit card and only unlock it once he returned to Germany. He reassured her that everything would be fine because he still had enough cash. Sandra immediately called a bank representative. She was told that once a credit card is locked, it cannot be unlocked again. She called Lars back and explained this, but Lars insisted that the card be locked. His voice grew increasingly anxious. So Sandra locked her son's credit card. Concerned for his safety, she immediately booked a flight from Varna back to Germany, departing at 4:20 p.m. the following day. And as a precaution, in case Lars was not allowed to fly, she also purchased a bus ticket, departing at 11:30 p.m. to Hamburg. She then told her son to rest and regain his strength because the days ahead would be exhausting. But Lars told his mother that he was going to leave the hotel. During this trip, Lars had brought an old mobile phone, used only for calls and texts. He left his smartphone at home in Germany to avoid damaging it and to enjoy the vacation without distractions. That meant Lars had no access to the internet. At 1 a.m., Lars packed his belongings and left the hotel. At 2:30 a.m., Lars called his mother again. He whispered in fear that he had left the hotel and that 4 men were following him. He said he was hiding somewhere, up high, and feared falling or being discovered. Then, the call abruptly ended. At 3:06 a.m., Lars sent a text message to his mother that read, "What is Kefsil 500?" 9 minutes later, at 3:15 a.m., he sent another message with the same question. What is Kefsil 500? This was the antibiotic that had been prescribed to him. At that point, Lars appeared to be questioning the very medication he was taking, because Sandra believed her son was hiding from someone who might harm him, so she did not call back. She feared that even a single ring could reveal Lars's location to those he believed were chasing him. Sandra stayed awake through the entire night. She never left her phone, waiting for one more call from her son. At around 5 a.m., a taxi driver noticed Lars standing by the roadside near the beach, in the area of the Beach Cuba bar. Lars appeared panicked. Although the taxi already had a passenger, a Bulgarian social worker, the driver decided to pick Lars up. He said Lars needed help immediately. Both the driver and the passenger later described the same detail. They said Lars looked terrified, and his pupils were fully dilated. At 6 a.m., the taxi arrived at Varna Airport. Lars got out, carrying all of his belongings. He immediately called his mother, Sandra. His voice sounded somewhat relieved, as he said he had arrived at the airport safely. Lars said he had run out of money. Because his credit card had been locked, he asked a German man at the airport for help. That man directed him to Western Union. Lars had never heard of the service before. He explained to his mother how it worked and asked her to send him some money without specifying an amount. During the call, Lars said, his clothes were covered in dirt. He explained that he had been hiding to avoid the 4 men who had followed him throughout the night. Sandra tried to calm him and advised him to see the airport doctor after rinsing his mouth to make sure he was cleared to fly. She told him that if his ear had truly been severe, the hospital doctor would not have discharged him. The phone call ended. Sandra decided to send Lars 500 euros through Western Union. She tried to call back to warn him, but the call wouldn't connect. That was the last time Lars Mittank answered his phone. After that, his mother called again and again, but she never received an answer. The medical exam lasted 42 minutes. Dr. Kostov took down all of Lars's information from his passport. He examined Lars's ear, applied eardrops, and took his temperature, 37.2 degrees Celsius. The doctor tried to give Lars medication, but Lars refused, possibly because of a negative experience earlier with Kefsil 500. The airport doctor concluded that Lars could fly back to Germany. The perforated eardrum was not considered severe. Later, Dr. Kostov described Lars as anxious and restless. He said Lars looked very unsure of himself and like someone who hadn't slept in a long time.
He didn't take that antibiotic. He didn't even fill the prescription. So his behavior couldn't have been caused by the medication. I can't think of any reason why he would leave my office in that kind of panic. Even now, I'm still confused.
Then Lars ran out of the clinic. He left behind everything: his mobile phone, his passport, his wallet, his ID documents. According to the doctor, Lars left the room. Immediately after, a third man, whose identity remains unknown, entered the clinic. When investigators asked about this man, Dr. Kostov changed his statement 3 times, as if he did not want to reveal who that man really was. That detail raised serious doubts about how much attention Bulgarian investigators gave this case. At 10:08 a.m., airport surveillance cameras captured Lars running out of the terminal. Once outside the building, he slowed down and walked around the airport. Witnesses later said they saw Lars climb over a barbed wire fence and disappear into a sunflower field, tall enough to reach a person's head near the highway. From that moment on, Lars Mittank vanished without a trace. no one has seen him again. No one has heard anything confirmed about him since. 3 months after Lars disappeared, in December 2014, a new report emerged. A Bulgarian woman came forward and saying she had seen a man that she believed was Lars Mittank. According to her account, the man was walking along a rural road, heading toward Slanchevo in the Aksakovo area. She said he hid behind bushes whenever cars passed by. She also stated that she approached and spoke with the man. He refused her offer and told her he was living in a large hotel in a nearby village. However, there is no hotel in Slanchevo, and no local residents reported seeing such a man in the area. Even so, Lars's family believes this sighting could be real. The reason is that the woman described a personal detail about Lars that had never been publicly released. Still, there is no independent evidence to confirm this encounter, and to this day, it remains an unverified possibility. In 2015, 1 year after Lars disappeared, a truck driver came forward with another account. He claimed to have seen a man resembling Lars hitchhiking in the Varna area. Once again, there was no independent evidence to support the claim. To this day, its credibility has never been established. 3 years later, in September 2018, another lead caught public attention. An Italian television program, Ci l'ha visto, aired a report, approximately 5 minutes long. The program stated that several witnesses at a McDonald's in Turin, specifically in Collegno, believed they had seen Lars Mittank. According to their descriptions, the man appeared thinner, with a beard and long hair. He spoke German, mixed with some Italian. However, when Lars's mother was shown the images and the related information, she reached a firm conclusion. That man was not her son, Beats. Then, in 2019, a German truck driver came forward with yet another statement. He said he had given a ride to a man from Dresden to Schildau in Germany. After learning about Lars Mittank's disappearance, the driver stated the hitchhiker resembled a distorted version of Lars. He described the man as having long hair and an untrimmed beard. But once again, there was no independent evidence to confirm this encounter. Over the years, a significant amount of false information has circulated about this case. One of the most widespread claims is that hotel surveillance cameras captured Lars hiding in an elevator and pacing stairwells for hours. That is not true. According to the hotel receptionist, Lars stayed at the Color Hotel for only about 3 hours. He did not leave his room during that time. More importantly, the hotel did not have functioning surveillance cameras at that time. In fact, the only confirmed video footage in the entire case is the recording from Varna Airport. There is no verified footage from the hotel. This information has been directly confirmed by the Facebook page, Findet Lars Mittank, which is managed by his family. Many believe these false stories were inspired by the Elisa Lam case and spread to attract attention, likes, and shares. Some have claimed that Bulgaria was Lars's first trip outside Germany. That is also not true. Lars was an experienced traveler. He had visited Norway and photographed himself in natural landscapes, such as fjord regions. He had also traveled to Turkey and Egypt. In one photo, Lars is holding a box of Kinder chocolate with a sun umbrella behind him, bearing Arabic writing. What made the Bulgaria trip different was not that it was Lars's first time abroad. It was different because this was the first time Lars took part in a vacation centered around nightclubs and beach parties. And in reality, that was not the kind of travel he enjoyed. At first, Lars declined the trip. But later, when one friend couldn't go, Lars took his place because he happened to be on work leave at the time. There are two major misunderstandings that need to be clarified in this case. First, Lars did not run into a dense forest, as many reports have claimed. In reality, he crossed a small field and walked to the highway on foot. There was no deep forest, where he vanished immediately. The second misunderstanding concerns the claim that Lars was beaten in a bar fight. That is not accurate. Lars was never involved in an actual physical fight at the bar. What occurred was only a brief verbal argument with a group of German tourists who were fans of Bayern Munich. The argument took place around 11 p.m. on July 5th, while they were watching the 2014 World Cup match between Costa Rica and the Netherlands. And it was quickly interrupted and resolved by Lars's friends. Later, when Paul and Tim stopped at a McDonald's, Lars disappeared for a short period of time. It was during that window that he said he was attacked while alone. But no one ever saw those men. There were no witnesses, no direct evidence. The only thing confirmed is that Lars suffered a perforated eardrum in his left ear. What caused that injury has never been clearly determined. Lars was not a conspiracy. He was a real person, like you or me. Someone loved him. Someone raised him from childhood. And there is still someone who wakes up in the middle of the night wondering whether they missed a sign along the way. If only that final call had allowed one more sentence. Or if only he were still out there, somewhere. If you or anyone you know has information, no matter how small, about Lars, please visit the Facebook page, linked here. Sometimes, a single detail long forgotten can be the one thing that brings someone back home. If you've stayed until this point, thank you for being here. Lars's story is not just a disappearance. It is also a quiet reminder of what can happen when we're far from home. When you travel, especially in unfamiliar places, don't underestimate the feeling of isolation. Even surrounded by people, you can still feel completely alone. If you begin to feel afraid or anxious or panicked, trust that feeling. Don't tell yourself, "I'm probably overthinking," because fear doesn't have to be logical to be real. When you're far from home, try to stay in places with people and with light. Don't hesitate to ask for help. Don't be afraid to stay a little longer if you don't feel okay. And if you ever receive a call from someone who's far away and their voice doesn't sound like themselves, listen more slowly. Ask one more question. Because sometimes, just one person not leaving too soon can be enough to keep someone connected to this world. Stories like this are not easy to watch, but they need to be remembered. If you want to stay with us for stories without answers for people who haven't come home, you can follow the channel. Not for shock, but so they're not forgotten. We'll meet again in the next story.